Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to a Construction Matters podcast. It's only notable for the fact that today would normally be property matters, but once or twice a month, we are delighted to have the company of Michelle Carr of Construction Alchemy along, who knows the ins and outs of all things construction. Of course, we have our esteemed leader, Hamish McClay of Search Convey. Hamish, would you care to introduce today's topic?
I will indeed. And welcome all of you back from another bank holiday. We've got to put up with another 2 weeks of 5 days in a week before we get the next one.
What 5 days in a week, Hamish?
Oh, yes. I don't know if we can cope with all of this. It must actually be pretty hideous in the construction industry when you think about it, because you get into a rhythm over the sort of 5 days, and the trouble is you've got to stop and have 3 days off, because what happened, the thing is, we've been very fortunate. We haven't had this sort of some of the dramatic weather that we had last year. There was just so much rain, just sort of so much of the time, and when we first started this year. But we've had from nice dry periods, which would give those out there, without a roof over their heads as of yet, to be able to actually do something in the dry. And it must be that stop-start is more or less really something which is the main topic of the conversation, because what we really want to be able to achieve, I think, for everybody, is to have an element of sustainability, not so much in terms of how long are these buildings going to last. That's another subject. But it's basically getting the build up and getting a rhythm into that build process. And we seem to have an awful lot of situations, bank holidays included, which seem to be making it a stop, start. And one of the biggest challenges, of course, is these various changes which are being introduced by the government, many of them very necessary. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure that we can cope with all of the changes for planning permissions to go through and all of this to actually happen, to enable Michelle to actually sort of, be able to sort of watch what is going out there in the outside world. And I don't know how it's impacting on things. Is there a big impact on stop-starts at the moment, Michelle?
This time of the year is also always impactful for stop-starts, because in all honesty, you're dealing with people that have had a good time or whatever, and leading up to Easter, there's always a lack of commitment on site. People are already in holiday mode before you've got the long weekend, obviously, and then they come back and everyone's still in a little bit of holiday mode, and then a few weeks later we've got another bank holiday weekend, and it was VE Day, which a lot of people celebrate, some people don't, but there's a lot of sort of, we're in holiday and we've had a beautiful weather, so people have been in summer mode for a couple of weeks, and that does affect productivity with mentality and the physical guys on site, what they're going to do, let alone weather, because weather doesn't affect construction as much as a lot of people think it do or will say it will. It does depend on obviously what you're doing. You can't pour concrete when it's torrential rain, but we're pretty good at sort of getting around these things when you need to, and a lot of people plan projects around the fact that we won't look to pour in this particular time of year, like just before Christmas, because it doesn't work, and there's other bits and pieces. But sustainability is totally different for me. Sustainability is about using products and that are going to be sustainable and obviously don't have an issue with the environment. But there's also changes, like, for example, I read something yesterday about they're now trying to get LEDs out to properties because of some form of radiation that they end up giving, and before that it was halogens were dangerous, and it's like, we've got to now change the light fitting. Now we need to go back to the light fittings that are really poor energy, and it just seems to be I remember the thing years and years and years ago that you couldn't hang your washing out because of the rain was acid rain. I mean, what happened to acid rain? And I do find that the government uses all these things to distract us from what's really going on, and to make policies for the sake of making policies. And I think by the time these things are implemented into the new projects that are already, because if you've got planning and a project is happening now, the planning would have been issued years ago. So anything that comes into government now, by the time it's actually implemented and the projects actually start digging in the ground, no doubt the government would have changed, and it's all going to change again anyway. It's all a bit, for me, it's a bit of a farce, because you have carbon neutral companies that deliver things all over the go in Arctic lorries. Now, an Arctic lorry is never going to be electric, and I can't see how it can be carbon neutral. And they do it by planting some trees somewhere. I think it's all a farce.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that, of course, as ever, we've been talking to Michelle Carr. Well, I have about taking the con out of construction. More about that later. I will slip that in, as the actress said to the bishop. Anyway, so Hamish, it seems to me that we are more and more of the attitude of looking for excuses why we can't have a sustainable construction rather than just cracking on with it. Or is it just me seeing from the sidelines thinking another stoppage?
I believe that you're right. I don't think there's an intent, because the government really want us to be able to get on. However, it is through their activity, by and large, like as Michelle just indicated, that we're having to start certain things. We have certain projects that which want to go forward, but because of the planning demands created as a consequence of the Building Safety Act, didn't exactly help some aspects of it. So that particular type of building is being held up significantly. There's a massive proportion of particularly London builds that aren't going forward because they're being stuck in the planning stage. And of course, there's not an awful lot you can do it, because it's not as though you're looking for there's not many people residing, not many bats actually residing in London. So you don't need to look at environmental issues.
There are a lot of bats in London.
Sorry?
There are a lot of bats in London.
Oh, yes, but there aren't habitats that you need to maintain. Or are there? Have I got that wrong, Michelle?
Oh, God, Michelle, please do tell us about the bats in our belfry.
I haven't had, to be honest, I haven't worked on a project in a city for a while, but I've worked in a number of projects in the outskirts of London, and yeah, bats are residing in the properties. They in roofs and things like that. We've had to have them removed. There are a lot of bats around, a lot more than people realise, and they're animals. They adapt. So if they can't find a tree to live in, they'll find a roof, or they'll find. I've had a lot of properties where they've had bats in the roofs.
And when an endangered species like that takes roost up in a property, does that just stop everything dead?
Yeah.
Wow. So
if you find a newt, so where I live, there are newts and they're protected in the river, and the contractor had to spend hundreds of thousands developing the area and weren't able to do X, Y, Z. That's also another thing. And yeah, everything stops and you cannot do anything. If there's somebody decides to put a tree protection order on a tree that's within your site, you have to stop. There's nothing you can do about it.
Obviously, no matter how small a newt is, I know which one's mine. It's my newt. Oh, sorry. Sorry,
sorry to go back to your point, Hamish. But yeah, there are lots of different things that happen. But the thing is with construction, though, we've been looking at sustainability for over a decade, if not longer. And that's the only thing that I think the construction industry is actually a little bit advanced in, is making buildings more sustainable. We've been doing that for a long time. And to be honest with you, it's one of the ways of getting around planning. So if you've got planning rejected, especially if you were doing like a house extension or something like that 10, 15 years ago, the way to have got around it was to make that extension sustainable and actually make your house less sustainable. So changing all the LEDs, all the spotlights or halogens at the time to LEDs, having solar panels, putting in either heat, air pumps or ground pumps or something like that. That was a way of getting around planning issues if you were trying to extend your property, because the council couldn't say no to making it a planning conditions unless there was other things going on. But if you had a planning application for an extension, for example, that made the entire house sustainable, then they weren't able to say no unless there were some real objections that were warranted in neighbourhoods or whatever it may be, like right of light or other things that are available. But sustainability has been a way to get planning through over the last probably 15 years. So I'm not sure what the big fuss is at the moment, and I'm not sure what the changes are going to be, but sustainability has been an issue for planning for a very long time. That's why before we had different codes. So you had code 2, 3, 4, 5. Most houses that I've built were code 4. My house that I live in now was a code 3. I'd never known a code 3 before, and it was an absolute pain in the backside because they make it so eco-friendly that either you can't get heat in, if the heat gets in, you can't get it out. There's also, I've had issues with flushes being amount of water they use that actually doesn't even flush anything, and we've had issues with code 3. That's gone. Then you've got BREEAM. BREEAM's been around for years too, so there's been a massive sustainability impact on building for a very, very long time, way before anybody else had to become carbon neutral and things like that. So I don't really understand what the big fuss is at the moment and what exactly is going to be changing, because we've been looking at this for a long, long time.
I think one of the things that sort of concerns me, we've gone slightly off topic, because I was looking at sustainability and more continuity to actually sort of keep that build program up, in that 1.5 million. But of course, this is a very, very important aspect as well, and may in itself become something which is quite relevant, because here we speak of, and it's definitely going to be a topic of conversation, we're speaking of solar panels. And how, I don't know quite how they propose sort of working this out, but one of the aspects of when we look towards it, and when projects are being started from start to finish, they do take quite a considerable period of time to actually sort of get acted upon and actually sort of get working fully through. Because if you want to start building something, you put your planning in now, and if it's quite a big, extensive sort of build, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get on the ground for at least 2 or 3 years. Now, of course, that is taking us much, much closer to 2027. So planning you're putting together now is fine, but if you're building, you've got to take into effect the fact that you're going to have to put solar panels on roofs. Now, that's going to put a significant demand on a particular sort of material which we don't manufacture to any great extent in the UK. So there's going to be shortages of that, surely. And then, of course, the worrying thing about that is somebody part the way through the lifetime, because they don't last forever. Somebody who buys that property is going to be responsible for replacing them. And what you do with it, so the sustainability there, with it seems like a great idea. We might be sort of we might be saving something by putting solar panels on, but it's not helping the environment any ultimately. So what do we do about solar panels? Does anything come into yet, or do you not need to worry about those as of yet, Michelle?
Well, solar panels I've got them in my house. The problem with solar panels is not everybody understands them. I don't think we've correctly got the infrastructure, and unless you've got the batteries, etc., then they're not really. A lot of people will put solar panels, a lot of new builds will have solar panels on them to tick a box. But actually, I've got solar panels, but unless you've got batteries in order to use the solar panels effectively, and it's very difficult, especially in the UK, to be able to have your house sustainable on solar panels only. So there are other things you need to do. So everyone thinks, oh, we tick a box, we put solar panels in. But actually, for me, in my experience of having solar panels, the only person that's benefited is the grid, because they get all of the electricity back, and I don't have any way of storing it. So I only use it when I can use it. So if I'm using my washing machine and the sun's shining, then I'll use my washing machine for nothing. If not, the grid get it. So
and the interesting thing is they don't even pay you much for putting it back to the grid anyway.
No, they don't. I mean, they'll charge you 36p or whatever, and I think we get paid back something like 3p or something ridiculous. I don't know. It's so ridiculous. I haven't even partaken in it. But to go back to the sustainability of the construction industry, you have one of the frustrating things about the construction industry and the government is they will bring something in. Like when I was studying for my degree, there was loads of people doing a HND because these home buyers reports were going to be compulsory. The government brought in, in order to sell a house, you're going to have a home buyers report. It's compulsory, and you're going to have all these things, and it had to be carried out by a qualified person. They then scrapped that halfway through our degree. So all these people were completing a HND for that sole purpose. And then they're like, now what are we going to do? So some of them left, other of them changed, and they did either architecture, building survey, quantity surveying, whatever it may be, because the government changed something halfway through. The thing is with construction, it takes years. Everything takes years. So by the time they've changed it, and so a lot of people don't pay much attention. But there is a lot of people in this country that rely on the construction industry. And I think some of them have been put off by what went on with COVID. Some people are being put off because a lot of companies, I've said many, many times, are going bust. There's other things that people need to be involved in, jumping hoops, and now changing the way that I think the biggest thing for construction industry is the fact that they're going to expect subcontractors, self-employed people, one-man bands, etc., to become making tax digital, and they're going to have to do tax returns every quarter as of 2026. That is what's going to kill the construction industry. Nothing else that the government does. That, in my opinion, is the most dangerous thing for the industry, because the people just aren't going to do it, or not want to do it, or they'll be. I don't really know what's going to happen. And I know I keep mentioning it to my husband, and it's just going in one ear and out the other. And I know I'll end up doing it, or whatever it may be. I've got a method of how we're going to get over that. But there are so many people that just aren't like that, and how they're going to deal with being online and having different bank accounts. And these aren't people that are used to using software and spreadsheets and all those kind of things, because they're on the tools all the time. They're not academic in that way. I mean, what they can achieve and their skills, it's totally different. But that's probably what's going to kill the construction industry more than anything else.
Oh, so you're saying that making tax digital, the government's flagship product for ensuring that they can tax us more efficiently, is the thing that's going to kill the construction industry?
I think I think so, because ultimately any building and any construction this depends on the people at the bottom physically doing the work, and if all of those people disappear, which they're disappearing anyway because their apprentice schemes are rubbish. There is no real government support in those schemes. That people use them as a way of cheap labour and abuse these kids, so they fall out of it and they don't bother continuing in construction. Now you're going to tax them left, right, and centre, but also make it difficult. Rather than doing it once a year, you've got to do it 4 times a year, and it's so stressful for people. And accountants, every accountant I know, in August and April, when all the ones want their tax rebates, and then all the people that don't really want to pay the tax they want to pay, leave it to the last minute in January, makes it much more and more stressful, and people will just stop doing it and they'll find something else to do. Or I don't really know what the other option is, but I do think it does concern me.
Hamish, would you care to take us home, sir?
Right, so the sustainability isn't so much a physical thing now. It's becoming more of an administrative thing. We did actually find, as a consequence of the last budget, the increase in national insurance contributions that employers needed to find. That's pushed them away from taking actual staff on, who, if you like, instead of being self-employed, could have ended up working for somebody. They aren't doing that now. So there are so many people I have spoken to that were going to increase staff, and to a certain extent, actually, was something we were going to do too. But the on cost actually defeats the object of it happening. So what we've got is too much administrative stuff going on in the background, which is actually restricting people in May, whether it happens to be the administration within planning. But it does strike me that it's not just that. Fundamentally, there's so many little, it's sort of hard to sort of say. It's a bit like the potholes in a way. Potholes develop in the roads and they don't actually fix those properly. And somehow or other, vehicle traffic has to negotiate around that. There are potholes being put into place to actually sort of make it difficult for people to actually get on and really contribute to the construction industry, which they're very, very capable of doing. It's not the absence of ability in some respects, although, as Michelle says, we are not attracting the right number of apprentices in. That was really something very important when I moved into engineering. It was a great thing, but they need to be treated the right way. And unfortunately, it isn't the case any longer. So sadly, we've got to smooth out some of these potholes, or bumps, I should say. I think it's more bumps than potholes. Mind you, it's dead easy to sort of slip into them, isn't it?
Well, interesting enough, who thought that the conversation to do with the construction industry would end up with talking about road maintenance? But maybe some of those people that are falling out of the construction industry because they're frankly too depressed about it could go and fix some of those bloody potholes. But anyway, moving along the bus. Thank you so much, Michelle Carr, and of course Hamish McClay. Forgive me, Hamish. I just want to cheekily promote Taking the Con Out of Construction, a podcast that will really give you a lift if you're wondering how to get on the ladder of flipping properties, or even just if you're dipping your toes into the construction field, I would recommend reading about it. And by the way, yes, it is true. Contracts are Michelle's favorite topic. Anyway, moving along.
I haven't mentioned it today, though, have I?
No, not yet. I did it for you. But watch out, there'll be a new one coming out this week. Hamish McClay, thank you so much for putting this together. And to all of you out there, just because there's uncertainty now doesn't mean there won't be uncertainty in the future. So just keep moving along. I'm sure that through the progress as we do through the various podcasts about property that Hamish helps me to put together, that you'll find out more about what's happening in the near future. Until then, thank you so much, Michelle Carr from Construction Alchemy. Of course, Hamish McClay and Search and Convey. And to all you out there, keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Who knows, you might catch the moon. And look after that mental health. Bye-bye now.